Hello, my name is Carlos Galicia,
My name is Jesús Hidalgo.
and we are going to talk about two books written by American author Chuck Palahniuk. I read Invisible Monsters,
And I read Fight Club.
and we are going to talk about the similarities, the topics, our thoughts about them. We are going to start with Fight Club. Tell us a little bit about Fight Club.
I like a lot Fight Club because of the criticism that the author has received from his readers, and also from his fellow writers. His work and himself is now considered as one of the most important novelists of the Generation X. That, as we know, this generation whose parents were baby boomers, a post-war generation with a lot of cultural changes, is conformed by childs with a huge concern in terms of what I'm going to do with my life. So with Fight Club we found this conflict that the main character face. Also Chuck Palahniuk use a certain kind of language that make us understand very clearly about his thoughts in the novel. And this novel is one of the vulgar, and I think that the context that he used was very interesting because of the main character facing his problems through this character called Tyler Durden, who actually he doesn't exist. He's like an invention of the narrator.
Okay, so I will talk about Invisible Monsters. I think it's impossible to do a summary of this book. It has a lot of elements. A thing that has in common with Fight Club is that it is really vulgar and extremely graphic. I mean, the descriptions are always really graphic. It basically talks about a girl which is a model and it's beautiful, and she was tired of being this beautiful and living this life that she actually didn't like. So she shot herself, and she messed up her mouth. So she has to live with this new life, being totally disfigured. And it talks about her brother, which is transsexual, and she thought that he was dead. And it's really crazy. I mean, it's really difficult to give a summary about this book. It's also written in a non-linear way, so there's a lot of flashbacks between every page. So it's really interesting the way he wrote this book. Basically, the themes of the book, it's banality, and it's a criticism to society and the material things. So, what do you think it is the main topic on Fight Club?
The thing with Fight Club is how these people who cannot find a place in society breaks down into madness because of their incessant need or obligation that they feel to live and share with people that doesn't understand how they feel. The author offers a new way out of depression and oppression for these people. The escape route is a violent evasion of this mad society in which some does not fit, just like in women issues. Women join together and share their feelings. And in one critic, I remember seeing this resemblance with Fight Club, that men come together and solve their problems or their feelings by fighting with each other. I remember also the main character, Tyler Durden, gave an incredible list of facts that make the narrator and also the reader break down the conviction on which we base our life, because he gives another perspective. This perspective is about despair. We can even think about capitalism that make us think whatever the capitalism wants, and at some point some people realize this these characteristics, and at the end we all are very upset with what we are living.
Okay. In the case of invisible monsters, as I mentioned, I think it's probably it's a critique to society. As you said with Fight Club, we live in a really capitalist society, and it seems like the only thing that matters nowadays is the material possessions and the mass production, and that is a topic that Chuck talks about in Invisible Monsters, as well as freedom. I think that the whole book talks about freedom, because the main character felt like she was on a cage until she decided to change the way she lived by shooting herself in the face. So yeah, that's the thing that we can relate between Fight Club and Invisible Monsters, is the seek of freedom of the main characters. Okay, so as you might imagine, there are a lot of similarities and links between both books. Not only the time similarity, because he wrote Fight Club and Invisible Monsters in probably the exact time. He actually presented both books at the same time with the editorials, but they rejected Invisible Monsters because they said it was quite displeasing, and because the topics were a little bit more graphic. As a result, Fight Club was released in 1996 and Invisible Monsters was released in 1999. But besides that, there are a lot of similarities and links between both books, on the way they are written, and also the character development and the stories and topics and all of that. First, we have that the characters are really autodestructive, trying to run away from their reality to a hopeless future. For example, in both books, they hate their lifestyle and they are breaking with it by hurting themselves and becoming a new person, someone different, someone new, and someone free. And both main characters achieve their goals through another character. In Invisible Monsters, this character is Brandy Alexander, and in Fight Club, it is Tyler. I think it's also really interesting the relationship between the two main characters of Invisible Monsters, which is Randy Alexander, or Shane, and Shannon, because for me they are pretty much the same character. Shane is the masculine persona of Shannon. They are both beautiful, and at the end of Randy's transformation, they also look really similar. They both have been tortured because of the lack of love from their parents, and they hurt themselves on their face, and most importantly they are trying to escape from a reality where they don't belong. And in the end, when Shannon gives Randy her identity, it's like they are mashing as one individual. So naturally I perceive the both characters as a rough sketch of what Palahniuk did with the main character and Tyler Durden in Fight Club.
Yes, as Carlos said, the context of both books were based basically in real experiences he suffered. I remember I read some critics about that he was in a club called Cacophony Symphony that liked to play large-scale pranks as the same thing in the Fight Club. Innocent group of people that in a short period of time turned into a dangerous group. Also, some facts we found in both novels is about this love triangle between the characters. Like, for example, we have in Fight Club Marla loving Tyler, but at the same time the narrator wants something with Marla, but it never happened. And in Invisible Monsters we have the same thing between these characters. I think that we recommend very much to read these novels because it gave us at the time we read, did these novels gave us some perspective of how facing problems and how people can become mad and they don't know how to do, and some activities release this stress they feel, like in a group of people hanging out, something like that. We like that very much, these novels, and we hope you to enjoy it.
So another interesting thing is that while I was doing a research about both books, their themes and the topics, I noticed that a name appeared in a lot of articles. It is Jean-Paul Sartre. He was a French philosopher, writer, activist, and one of the most important figures in the 20th century. He was an exponent of existentialism and humanist Marxism. What he basically said is that every person is responsible of him or herself, and that every man or woman made themselves. I think this is really related to what we saw in these two books. What Sartre is basically saying is that we are responsible of who we are and what we are going to become. That we are free to choose whatever path that we want to take, and we can make ourselves whatever we want to be. And at least in Invisible Monsters, which is the book that I read, we can really notice this. Shannon shot herself in order to become another person. Randy Alexander, on the other hand, the same thing. She became a transsexual woman to escape from her reality. And in Fight Club, I think it's the same thing. He's trying to change herself in order to become free. And yes, same thing happens in Invisible Monsters. They are trying to free themselves from their lifestyle and all the things that surround them.
Another important link between both books is the strong critique they do to the consumerist society. On the Fight Club, the narrator creates the Fight Club, trying to fight the side of the society, and on the other hand, on Invisible Monsters, at the same in Fight Club, it seems to be fragmented and almost incomplete. Both novels leave us wondering for something that actually we don't know. And finally, we can see a similarity between both novels, because one of the main plots in both is the problem with the identities of the characters.
So this is it. I hope you enjoy our podcast. We fully recommend both Fight Club and Invisible Monsters. So yeah, I am Carlos.
I am Jesus. See you next time. Thank you.
Bye.